Sonic Mania and Sonic Superstars are both very good classic Sonic games, but which one is better? Today, I will be finding the answer. The games will be ranked in 5 categories, and the better game in each category will get 1 point. The game with the most points by the end of the video wins, and it is objectively the better game. If you enjoy, then like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Sonic Superstars plays how any other classic Sonic game would. But the difference is that there are 2 new characters in the game that we have never seen in a classic Sonic game before, Amy and Trip. Sonic plays how he normally does. He has a spin dash and a drop dash. Tails can fly around, and Knuckles can glide and climb. Amy, however, has a double jump, allowing her to reach higher places. She can also use her hammer to destroy objects around her. Trip has a double jump and can climb as well. Each character has their own super form. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy all have the same one. However, Trip can turn into a dragon and go and fly around. Sonic Mania lets you play as Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles in the base game. Sonic is a spin dash and a new ability called the drop dash. Tails can fly. Knuckles can glide and climb. In 2018, a year after Sonic Mania came out, DLC got added. This added in Mighty and Ray as playable characters. Mighty has a ground pound that he can do in midair. Ray can glide, but he can also dive to pick up more speed. As for which game has better gameplay, it is hard to decide between the two. Both of these games are very good in terms of gameplay, but I feel like Sonic Mania has better gameplay because it feels more polished and Superstars feels a little bit stiffer. The level design in classic Sonic games is always really good, and Sonic Superstars is no stranger to that. The levels are usually around 2 to 3 minutes of gameplay until you do a boss fight at the end. The levels have the top route for better players and the bottom route for new and less skilled players. One thing that I do not like about the level design is that there are special stages everywhere. Sometimes you're playing a stage and you're having fun, and then you enter a special stage ring by accident, and then you can't play the stage anymore. It disrupts the entire flow of the game. I feel like there should be a way to remove the special stage rings from the levels, especially the ones that you have already played and beaten before. It's fine if you haven't done them before because you get something from them, but if you already have, it gets annoying because there are so many sprinkled around everywhere. However, my favorite level has got to be Cyber Station, not just because of the aesthetic, but because of the variety. In Cyber Station, you turn into a squid, a mouse, and a literal rocket. That is something that a classic Sonic level has never done before, and it executes it perfectly. Sonic Mania's level design is extremely fun and engaging. The levels don't overstay their welcome, but they aren't too short either. None of the levels feel like it's chore to play because they are all just fun. Stardust Speedway is probably my favorite zone in the entire game because of the speeds that you can go at. It's pretty insane. The levels are usually around 2 to 3 minutes of gameplay, just like Superstars. Every single level has a boss fight at the end. Like Superstars, some are easy and some are difficult, but I'll talk about bosses later. As for which game has better level design, I prefer Sonic Superstars. Now I know this might be a little bit of a controversial choice, but I just like Superstars more. Maybe it's because it has a 2.5D art style instead of Sonic Mania's 16-bit graphics, but the aesthetic of the levels just looks really good. Superstars also has more original level environments, whereas Mania has a few original environments, but the majority of the zones are from older Sonic games. Sonic Superstars bosses are terrible. They are some of the hardest boss fights in any game that I have ever played. I didn't even beat some of them, I just used speedrun skips to skip them because they were just so annoying and unfair. Some of the main annoying fights are the Fang bosses in both the main story and Trip story, the main story final boss, and the Trip story final boss. The others are pretty okay, but these 3 just bring down the entire game for me and many others. The fights are just unfair, and some attacks can kill you no matter how many rings you even have. Sonic Mania's boss fights are more consistent in terms of difficulty. The first act of the zone, you get an easy boss, but the second act, you get a more difficult boss. This balances the difficulty of the boss fights a lot better than Sonic Superstars ever could. The bosses are what you would typically expect from a classic Sonic game. Just jump on the boss until he dies, and then move on to the next level, which is good because they go by fast. As for which game has better bosses, Sonic Mania wins easily because the bosses in Sonic Superstars are too hard and way too inconsistent in terms of difficulty. Superstars boss fights take too long, but in Sonic Mania, If you are good, you can speed up the fights and make them go by much faster. You can't do that in Sonic Superstars. Sonic Superstars has some pretty good special stages. It has 3 kinds of special stages. The first kind is to get the Chaos Emeralds. You have to swing around on these ropes until you get them. While these are good, it is pretty hard to turn around in midair. The second special stage is entered once you hit a checkpoint. These are the Sonic 1 special stages. You jump around trying to get as many medals as possible without accidentally hitting the goal ring to leave the level. The third kind of special stages are these warp portals. You go into them and the timer of the stage pauses. You can get rings in here as well. It teleports you to another part of the level, and it's a pretty cool way to get around. Sonic Mania special stages take a lot of inspiration from Sonic CD. They are 3D and you have to run around chasing UFOs. You chase them around the level until you catch them, and then you get the Chaos Emerald. You collect blue spheres on the ground to increase your speed, starting at Mach 1. Once your rings run out though, you are done. The special stages get harder as you go on. I feel like this point goes to Sonic Superstars because the special stages are just more varied. Sonic Mania only has 1 kind of special stage. Sonic Superstars DLC was pretty small. It mainly came in the form of skins. There was a Lego version of every character. There was also an IHOP Amy skin. There was also a Shadow costume for Sonic and a Rabbit costume for Sonic as well, because that was the original design for Sonic, if you didn't know that. Besides that, that's all there was for DLC for Sonic Superstars. Sonic Mania Plus added in Mighty and Ray as playable characters. Mighty can ground pound and Ray can glide and dive. It also added Encore mode to Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania wins this point because it introduced 2 new playable characters of DLC, and Superstars just had cosmetic skins. Now that we have finished comparing both games, the score stands as follows. Sonic Superstars has 2 points, and Sonic Mania has 3 points. Sonic Mania is the winner, and wins the title of the better game, in my opinion, at least. If you enjoyed the video, then like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.